On the day my husband shoved me into the pit hidden beneath the Christmas tree, he didn't yell, didn't curse, didn't shake. He just adjusted the trunk over me and murmured, "There, last problem of the year solved." It feels strange to admit this, but that shove wasn't the first violence. The first came long before, in small doses, on ordinary nights, on Christmases when I cried in the bathroom while everyone said I was lucky to have such a calm husband. Calm. They didn't know that behind that calm was a man who had learned to kill me on the inside long before he tried to kill me on the outside. My name is Danielle. I'm 42, and for far too long, I was the woman who went along with everything so I wouldn't ruin the mood, especially at Christmas. I was always the one organizing everything: the dinner, the shopping list, the gifts, the decorations, the lights I untangled strand by strand with the same tenderness as someone who still believed that if the house looked beautiful, maybe the people inside it would too. Calm. He grumbled about the music, complained that the Christmas tree was nonsense, that gifts were a stupid waste, that the holiday only existed so people could pretend they were a perfect family. Even so, I insisted. I tried. Deep down, I wasn't decorating the house. I was decorating hope. But that year, things were different. I was at the sink washing the third round of dishes when he leaned against the counter, crossed his arms, and said in a tone far too light, "This Christmas, I'll take care of everything." I froze, my hands still under the water. Take care? What do you mean? He shrugged like it was the most natural thing in the world. Everything. Tree, lights, dinner, decorations. You're always saying you're tired, so that's it. Rest. This year, I've got it. If I had listened with my skin instead of my exhaustion, I would have heard the thunder behind that sentence. But I was tired. Tired of asking for help, tired of being ignored, tired of being called dramatic. So when he said, "I've got it," instead of fear, I felt relief. You're sure?" I asked, drying my hands. He came closer, gave me a quick kiss on the forehead, and to anyone else, it might have looked tender. But I knew the weight of that kiss. It was a kiss meant to close a subject, not express affection. "I'm sure. Trust me, Danielle. Just once." Just once. I'd heard that before. Just once to change jobs without telling me. Just once to move his mother into our house without asking. Just once to let his childhood friend, Sasha, spend every important holiday with us because she didn't have family nearby. Every time I accepted a just once, a piece of me faded. A few days later, I heard a car outside. I peeked through the window. Tyrone was unloading a massive artificial pine, heavy, with a trunk that looked almost real. He didn't ask my opinion, didn't ask where I wanted it. He decided. And he decided it would go in the yard. "Outside?" I asked, confused. "The living room every year. I'm tired of it. Outside, daylight helps, and people can see it from the street. It'll look nice." Nice for whom? For photos? For neighbors to think everything was fine? For Sasha to admire from the sidewalk? I didn't know. All I knew was that something tugged inside my chest. That feeling that something is out of place, like a crooked painting only you can see. That afternoon, I stayed in the kitchen, pretending to tidy up, just so I could watch through the window. I saw when he came down holding a shovel. Not a gardening shovel, a construction shovel. Large, heavy. "What's all that for?" I muttered to myself. He walked to the corner near the fence, looked around like he was choosing the perfect spot, and started digging. It wasn't a shallow hole for the tree stand. It was deep. Every time he drove the shovel into the ground, soil rose in damp, heavy heaps. The hole grew deeper and deeper until the shovel nearly disappeared inside it. I'd planted flowers there before. I knew it didn't need that much digging. My heart tightened. It wasn't panic. It was a pressure, the kind that comes with a thought you try to shove away too quickly. He just wants the tree, Danielle. Stop overthinking. I told myself that the same way I had so many times when something about him hurt and I chose to believe the softer version. But my body didn't believe it. I went down to the backyard. The air was cold, smelling of turned earth and moisture. The sound of the shovel slicing into the soil felt like someone tearing through something sacred. That's pretty deep, huh? I tried to joke, hugging myself. He didn't laugh. I know what I'm doing, he said, without looking at me. I looked into the hole. It reached nearly mid-thigh on him. It's a plastic tree, Tyrone, not a utility pole. He put the shovel down and stared at me for a few seconds too long. If you want to help, let me work. If you don't, go back inside. That sentence cut deeper than any yell. I went inside. I went back into the house I thought was mine, but that Christmas, it began to feel like a set designed by someone else. That night, I had a strange dream. I dreamed I was trapped beneath something heavy, hearing laughter above me. I woke with my heart racing, my pillow damp with sweat. I looked beside me. Tyrone slept peacefully, breathing slow and steady, as if nothing in the world weighed on him. Only someone absolutely sure of their plan sleeps like that. I got up, walked to the hallway window, and saw the finished tree outside, dark except for the glow from the street lamp. It looked beautiful. But to me, in that moment, it looked like something else. A marker, a warning, a period at the end of a sentence I hadn't realized he was writing. I had ignored my intuition so many times. But standing there, even for a second, I thought, this tree is not about Christmas. It's about me. And unfortunately, I was right. I just didn't know how right. I used to think violence always came with noise. I thought dangerous men were the ones who yelled, slammed doors, threw plates. But Tyrone never needed to raise his voice to hurt me. His violence was precise, calculated, quiet. So quiet that for years, even I stopped calling it violence. On the morning it all happened, the sky was gray but not stormy. The kind of weather that feels like it's holding its breath. I'd already been uneasy about his behavior for days. Distant, strangely focused on that tree, meticulous in a way he had never been with any other house chore. He woke up early, earlier than me. I heard heavy footsteps in the hallway, metallic sounds coming from the backyard, like tools being dragged. I should have asked what he was doing. I should have gone to look. But a part of me already knew I was bracing myself, not for something physical, but for yet another emotional humiliation I would pretend not to see. When I came downstairs, the kitchen was spotless. Table set, fresh coffee. He never did that. Never. That should have been sweet. Instead, a cold shiver ran down my spine. "Morning," he said, without looking at me. "Morning," I replied, still thrown off. I sat at the table. The mug was almost too hot to hold. He came up behind me, placed his hands on my shoulders, and squeezed. Not with tenderness, but with intent. The kind of grip that masquerades as affection, but registers as a warning. "Today, I'm finishing everything out there. I don't want you around, okay?" The way he said, "I don't want you around," sliced right through me. "Why?" I asked. "Because you get in the way." And just like that, he walked off, as if he'd said something harmless. I sat there, holding the mug that burned my fingertips, trying not to let my hands shake. That's the problem. When violence doesn't look like violence, the victim starts to believe she's overreacting. An hour later, I went to the porch. The smell of soil and sweat reached me before the sight did. Tyrone was in the yard, shirtless, digging in a pattern that almost looked rehearsed. The hole was deeper than the night before. The sound of the shovel hitting the ground was steady, deliberate, relentless. He seemed too focused or too determined. "Need a hand?" I asked, trying to sound neutral. He slowly turned his head, too slowly, and looked at me with an expression I didn't recognize. "Come down for a minute," he said, wiping sweat from his forehead. Something inside me froze, but I went. Women learn to go even when their whole body begs them not to. I walked toward him. The soil under my shoes felt soft, freshly turned, damp, a little too alive. Tyrone set the shovel aside and ran his hand along his jaw as if evaluating a project. "The tree's crooked," he said flatly. I looked at it. It wasn't. It stood straighter than any tree we'd ever put up together. But before I could say anything, he took 2 steps toward me. "Come closer." There was no affection in that request, only command. I obeyed, because women conditioned by fear don't obey the person, they obey the pattern. When I got close enough to smell him, sweat, dirt, and something metallic, I realized he wasn't breathing deeply. He was breathing fast, like someone waiting for the exact moment to act. "Tyrone, what are you—" That's when it happened. One shove. Sharp, direct, precise. No words, no warning, not a hint of hesitation in his hand. My breath vanished. My vision shook. The ground disappeared. I fell hard into the hole dug under the tree that was supposed to symbolize togetherness. The air shot out of my lungs in a rough, broken groan. Cold dirt wrapped around me like dead weight. Tyrone, stop! What are you doing?" He didn't answer. He didn't look at me. He just pushed the branches of the tree aside, adjusting the trunk like he was making a final technical adjustment on a project. I tried to get up, but the dirt slid over my legs, seeping into my jeans, filling my pockets, pinning my knees. The branches scratched my arms, leaving thin, burning lines on my skin. Then I heard the most disturbing sound of all, the shovel hitting the dirt again. He was filling the hole, and I was inside it. "Tyrone, don't do this! I'm here!" The shovel kept moving, rhythmic, unhurried, unapologetic. That's when an old memory, sharp like a knife, cut through my mind. Me, 6 years earlier, asking why he kept my documents locked in his drawer. Him, laughing and saying, "Because you lose everything. Better if I keep it all." Back then, I thought he was helping. Now, I understood. He'd always wanted control. Always. The dirt had reached my waist when the doorbell rang at the gate. "Tyrone, you out there?" the neighbor called. He froze. For a second, even his breathing stopped. Then he set the shovel down slowly, as if placing guilt on the ground could hide the crime from the world. He looked at me, the only time he really looked at me, and said with a coldness that still cuts, "Don't move." Then he walked toward the gate. That phrase, "don't move," is what flipped a switch inside me. Something I thought no longer existed woke up. The urge to live. While he spoke to the neighbor, I forced my legs to move, twisted my body, pushed against the dirt with my elbows. I felt my nails tear, felt my shoulders burn. But stronger than all of that was one certainty. I was not going to die in a grave he dug for me. When I finally managed to twist my body and break through the packed layer of soil trapping me, I dragged myself out with a dry, ragged groan, lungs on fire. The air hit my face like a slap, life like a punch. I was alive, standing, and newborn. And the first thing I felt wasn't anger. It was clarity. Clarity that this tree wasn't landscaping. It was a plan, a ritual, a sentence. And I needed to get back into the house, because nobody digs a grave without planning who's going to raise a glass afterward. When I pulled myself out of that makeshift grave, I felt something I had never felt in all my years beside Tyrone. My body wanted to live. Not for him, not for the house, not for the illusion of a family, but for me. Soil slid down my legs, clinging to my shoelaces, seeping into the fabric of my shirt, sneaking under my sleeves. Every movement ripped a short groan from my chest. My muscles were shaking, exhausted, shocked. And yet, inside me, a heat was building, a pulse, a ferocity. The survival instinct is not something you recognize in theory. It only wakes when life sits millimeters from ending. As I struggled to breathe evenly, I heard voices at the gate. Tyrone was talking to our neighbor, as if he'd just been watering plants, as if the sweat on his temples was the result of yard work, not an attempt at murder. "You good out there?" the neighbor asked. "Everything great," Tyrone replied with that forced cheerfulness he wore when lying. A coldness settled in my stomach. His ease, his casual tone, it confirmed something terrifying. This wasn't a moment of rage. It was a plan. And if it was a plan, then there was more steps, more layers, maybe more people. I pushed my hands into the dirt, steadying myself as I stood. My knees wobbled, but I breathed through it, planting my feet on the damp grass and forcing my body upright. My nails were cracked and caked with earth. My arms were streaked with branch scratches. My breathing came shallow, almost in sobs. But I was standing. And in that moment, covered in soil and adrenaline, another clarity hit me. He hadn't begun burying me today. Today was only the first time he used real dirt. Every controlling remark, every dismissal of my intuition, every insult disguised as concern, every time he praised Sasha in front of me so I'd shrink, those were also burials, small ones, emotional ones. The grave had been symbolic long before it became literal. But today, Tyrone overcommitted to his metaphor. While this realization thundered through my mind, another sound snapped me back to the present. Glass clinking, coming from inside the house. Not ordinary glass, not a dropped cup. It was the crystalline clink of toasting. My blood ran cold, but my chest burned. I moved quietly toward the side of the house, keeping myself hidden along the narrow corridor. Every step hurt, but each step felt intentional. I couldn't be seen, not yet. I leaned against the siding and peeked through the slightly parted living room curtains. What I saw was so surreal that my brain tried to reject it at first. 2 wine glasses sat on the table, filled, celebratory. One of them had a smear of red lipstick, a shade I never wore because Tyrone always told me it didn't suit me. And then I saw her, relaxed in my favorite chair, legs crossed with comfortable entitlement, laughing. The necklace glimmering at her throat was one he had once promised to buy for me when finances got better. Sasha, the childhood friend, the constant guest, the woman who always seemed to know Tyrone's thoughts before I did. She was in my house, in my chair, wearing the gift meant for me, drinking wine bought with my money. My stomach lurched, my hands tingled, and it wasn't fear, it was comprehension. When I looked at her, I saw something familiar. The comfort of someone who believes she belongs where she shouldn't, the smug glow of a woman who thinks she won something, the ease of someone who does not fear consequences. Then Tyrone walked in with another glass. He set it on the table and said, "Now nothing stops us." Sasha laughed, lifting her glass. "She's not coming back. You promised." That sentence split the world open. My throat locked, my eyes stung, my pulse roared. They weren't just together. They weren't just cheating. They had made a pact. They had planned my absence. They had envisioned a future without me. They had toasted to it. My first instinct was to sprint inside, scream, throw things, rip every truth out of them. But then something shifted inside me. Everything, mind, heart, muscles, terror, memory, aligned. A single razor-sharp intuition whispered, "Not yet. Don't walk in angry. Walk in aware. Walk in when they think you're dead." So I circled around quietly, letting clumps of dirt fall from my clothes as I moved. I reached the side door, the one almost no one used. I put my hand on the cold metal handle and pushed. The door opened with a soft creak. Sasha looked up first. Her eyes landed on me. My filthy clothes, my scraped arms, my trembling but upright body. She didn't scream. She fainted. Tyrone froze. The glass slipped from his hand, shattering against the floor. In that moment, I understood. I wasn't a ghost. I wasn't a hallucination. I wasn't a problem they dealt with. I was the end of their secret, the collapse of their plan, the return they never planned for. And the very dirt meant to erase me had returned me more alive than either of them could handle. The silence that filled the room when I stepped inside wasn't the silence of surprise. It was the silence of defeat. Not mine, theirs. I took only 2 steps into the living room, yet the energy shifted so violently it felt like the floor trembled beneath us. The air thickened. Even the Christmas lights flickered differently, as if they too were witnessing the collapse of a performance rehearsed for years. Tyrone stood frozen, the half-full wine glass trembling in his hand, the red liquid sloshing unevenly. His face twisted into an expression I had never seen fully until that moment. Shock, fear, disbelief, and underneath all of it, rage. Rage not because I was hurt, but because I was alive. Sasha, still slumped in my chair, looked like a marionette whose strings had been cut. The necklace he had promised me glimmered mockingly against her trembling collarbone. The golden flecks from the Christmas lights danced across her skin, giving her a sickening glow. A cruel irony for someone who had spent years basking in the light stolen from my life. I didn't speak. Not yet. I let myself look around the room I had curated piece by piece. The frames I hung with steady hands, the cushions I chose for comfort, the dining table where I once imagined family laughter, the living room where I had sat countless nights alone while he ignored me, the house I believed held memories, only to realize it had been a stage for betrayal, a stage for my erasure, a stage for the celebration I had stumbled into too soon. The Christmas tree outside, the one built over the earth that nearly became my grave, glowed through the window like an omen. I breathed in deeply. The scent of spilled wine mixed with the earthy smell clinging to my body. It grounded me. Tyrone was the first to attempt recovery. Danielle, what happened to you? Did you fall? Did you hurt yourself?" His voice wavered, false concern dripping like acid. I lifted my head slowly, locking eyes with him. He swallowed hard. Because in my eyes, there was no fear left, only clarity. "I climbed," I said simply. The words landed like a stone. He understood exactly what I meant. Sasha stirred weakly, lifting her empty glass with trembling hands. Danielle, you're dirty. You must have slipped." I ignored her. She wasn't the point. She had never been the point. She was just a side character who sat in the wrong chair at the wrong time. I approached the table and touched the wine glasses, my soil-stained fingers leaving brown smudges on the glass. Marks of truth. Marks of survival. Marks of the grave I had climbed out of. Tyrone stepped forward cautiously, attempting to reclaim control, his favorite role. Danielle, you're not okay. You're shaken. Let's sit. Let's talk. You're misunderstanding. Clarity, I murmured with a bitter laugh. Tyrone, I have never seen more clearly. He froze. Then it happened, the first twist. Sasha, overwhelmed, let panic crack her composure. You said she wasn't coming back, she blurted, voice high and unsteady. The words erupted into the room like an explosion. I turned to Tyrone. He turned to her. Their eyes collided, and in that silent exchange, I saw the truth they had tried to bury. He lunged toward her. Sasha, shut your... But it was too late. The truth was already out. I walked toward her as she collapsed into small, pitiful sobs. Not remorseful sobs, fearful sobs, because the only plan they had ever made together was my absence. You knew, I said softly. You just didn't know I'd be strong enough to climb out. She covered her face, crying harder. I knelt, not out of submission, but to meet her gaze levelly. You didn't just steal my husband, I said. You stole my space, my chair, my symbol. Her breath hitched. And now you see, the place he offered you wasn't a throne. It was a grave next to mine. She broke. I stood again, turning to Tyrone. He was panting now, face blotchy, trembling. He took half a step toward me, voice cracking. Danielle, stop this. You're twisting things. I never meant. I only pushed you because... Say it, I whispered. Say you pushed me. His lips parted, caught, cornered. And then the real Tyrone surfaced. Not the calm one the world loved. Not the charming one. Not the victim he often pretended to be. The man behind the mask. You made me do it, he roared, veins bulging at his temples. You force me into these things. You never listen. You never trust me. I just wanted a new life, and you wouldn't let me. There it was, the twist inside the twist. Not just confession, blame. The hallmark of every abuser. Not I did it, but you made me do it. My stomach twisted, not from fear, but from recognition. Tyrone, my voice was calm, eerily calm. The only thing I ever stopped you from doing was burying me alive. He stumbled backward, collapsing on the couch. Sasha sobbed harder. And me? I stood in the center of the room, covered in dirt, injuries throbbing, heart relit, as the only one who wasn't crumbling. Not because of strength, but because of truth. I stepped toward the hallway door, letting the glow of the outside lights illuminate me. Tyrone, I said softly, turning back to face him, why did you dig the hole that deep? His silence was suffocating. Then he whispered, a whisper meant to justify the unjustifiable. So no one would find you. A pause, a breath, a rebirth. I turned fully, and in that moment, he finally understood. You dug too deep, I said, because the deeper you dig, the higher I climb when I come back. His face drained of color, and that was the exact second the balance shifted. Not to him, not to Sasha, to me. I was no longer the woman he tried to bury. I was the woman who rose. When the initial shock faded and the room finally managed to breathe, even if in fractured, uneasy gasps, I realized I still hadn't seen everything. Truth doesn't arrive all at once. It peels itself in layers. And that night, there were far too many layers waiting to be torn open. I took a few steps across the living room, feeling dry soil fall from my clothes in tiny fragments. Each speck felt like a witness. Each particle whispered, "You came back. You saw." Then I walked toward the chair. That chair. The one that had always been mine. The one I bought impulsively after my first raise. A moment that felt like independence, however small. The one that sat in the corner of the room near the window, where I would read at night and try to forget the silent wars Tyrone detonated inside me. And now, Sasha was sitting in it. She trembled, the necklace meant for me glittering on her throat. Her makeup had melted into streaks, her hands clasped tightly in her lap as if trying to hide something she couldn't hide anymore. I stopped right in front of her. "Do you like my chair?" I asked, my voice low, too low to sound comforting. She blinked rapidly, stunned. I just sat because Tyrone said—" "I know what Tyrone said," I cut in, steady. "I'm asking what you thought of it." The question struck her like a slap. For a moment, she tried to lift her chin, searching inside herself for some remaining scrap of dignity. "I never wanted anything of yours, Danielle. I just wanted to feel seen. Seen." That word cracked something open inside me. Because women like me, and women like her, spend years craving that. To be noticed, to be valued, to be acknowledged. But the difference between us was brutal. I tried to be seen by working, improving, bending myself painfully to fix a dying marriage, while she tried to be seen by sitting in my chair before I was even gone. The betrayal wasn't just romantic, it was existential. I placed a hand on the backrest, a simple gesture, but Sasha recoiled as if expecting me to yank her backward. "Did you know," I said softly, "that this chair was the first piece of furniture I ever chose without asking for his opinion?" She whispered, "No." "Yeah, and he hated it. Always said it didn't fit me. Said it was too sensual for a woman who worked too much to rest." Behind me, Tyrone muttered, "Danielle, for God's sake, none of this matters." "It matters!" My voice ripped through the room. "It matters because you always hated everything that represented my independence." He shut up immediately. I inhaled deeply, adrenaline burning through my veins in sharp pulses. Then I turned back to Sasha. "You didn't just steal my husband, Sasha. You stole my space, my chair, my symbol." Her chin quivered. Tears collected at the corners of her eyes. I crouched down, not to submit, but to confront her at eye level. "Do you know the difference between you and me?" I asked quietly. "You thought you could take my place without paying the price of it." I pointed toward the backyard door. "But now you see, the place he offered you wasn't a seat at the table. It was a grave beside mine." Her face drained of color. She understood. Finally. Painfully. Tyrone shifted behind me, irritated, nervous, realizing he was losing control of both of us. I stood back up. "When you sat in this chair, Sasha, you thought he had made room for you." I looked her straight in the eye. "But he didn't." I pointed again, to the yard, to the darkness, to the soil still unsettled. He was just making room for my burial. The sentence tore through the room like a storm. A raw silence followed, heavy enough to crush. Tyrone stepped forward. "Danielle, enough! You're manipulating her. You're twisting everything. I'm alive!" My voice boomed. "And that's already more than you wanted." He froze. For the first time that night, I felt real power. Not dominance, not control, existence. I walked across the room, studying every object as though seeing it for the first time. The table where I wrote Christmas lists. The wine glasses we saved for important nights. The rug where I used to lie down to stretch my aching back. The scented candle I lit to hide the smell of his cigarettes. And then I noticed something new, something wrapped on the table. A present, with my name on it. I stopped. A cold wave slid through my spine. "This is for me?" I asked. Tyrone hesitated. Sasha shut her eyes tight. No one answered. I picked up the box, felt its weight, its shape. Then, without ceremony, I unwrapped it. It wasn't a gift. It was a folder, a stack of pre-prepared documents, forms, signatures, power of attorney papers, transfer authorizations, legal documents that would give Tyrone total control over assets I barely remembered owning. The gift was my erasure. I lifted my eyes. Here came the real shock. Tyrone wasn't nervous I had found them. He wasn't ashamed. He wasn't scared. He was annoyed. Annoyed that I had opened it too early. "Danielle," he muttered through clenched teeth, "you weren't supposed to open that yet." In that moment, everything snapped into place. The grave wasn't symbolic. The documents weren't symbolic. Nothing had been symbolic. They were celebrating not my death, but my legal deletion. The earth in the yard was one grave. The paperwork was the second. And somehow, instead of breaking me, it freed me. Because I finally understood. I was never married to a man. I was married to a project. And I was the disposable component. The fear evaporated. The silence hardened into clarity. And the internal plan I didn't know I had been building, piece by piece, breath by breath, clicked into place. I didn't need violence. I didn't need revenge. All I needed was to stay alive and keep revealing. If there is a moment when a man's soul reveals itself, it isn't when he says he loves you. It's when he's caught. And in that living room, with the Christmas tree outside swaying in the cold breeze and damp soil still clinging to my legs, I finally saw Tyrone without disguise. He wasn't a husband. He wasn't a partner. He wasn't even merely unfaithful. He was something else entirely. Something colder. Something incapable of love. Only ownership. I clutched the folder of documents that were supposed to be my present. The papers trembled in my hands, but my fingers were steady. I was steady. Tyrone tried stepping toward me, but stopped when he realized I wasn't the woman he could intimidate anymore. My expression had changed, completely. "Danielle, you're not seeing the context," he stammered. "I was going to explain the paperwork. It's just a formality." Formality? I opened one of the forms. A full power of attorney. Another granting him unlimited access to accounts. Another allowing property transfers without my presence. All signed in my handwriting? Or rather, an imitation of it. "Tyrone," I lifted my eyes, touching the fake signature. "You forged my name." He swallowed, throat bobbing. Sasha gasped, covering her mouth, the horror of realization finally setting in. Before I could speak again, Sasha broke, her voice cracking open like glass. "He told me you'd agree later. He said you'd be fine with it once everything's settled. He said he was just speeding things up." "Sasha!" Tyrone roared, pointing at her. "You don't get to drag her into this. This is between me and Danielle." I laughed, not out of humor, out of disbelief. "You dug a hole, Tyrone." My voice was steady, lethal. "You shoved me into it. You covered me with dirt. Then you toasted with her." I took a breath. "And you think this is between us?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. I wasn't done. I walked to the table where the 2 wine glasses sat. The lipstick mark, the spilled wine, the evidence of celebration. I touched Sasha's glass, then his. "What were you 2 celebrating?" My voice was dangerously calm. Neither spoke, but I didn't need their answer. Tyrone stepped again, more desperate now. "You don't get it," he yelled, losing control. "I did this for us. You make everything impossible. You never trust me. And Sasha, he pointed at her with shaking hands, Sasha understands me. She knows what I need. Sasha jerked back, startled at being dragged into his rage. I stared at him for a long, endless second, letting his words sink, rot, crumble. I did this for us. The classic line, the manipulator's anthem, the abuser's hymn. Not accountability, accusation. Because in his mind, the villain was never him. It was me, always me. Tyrone. I stepped closer, and he flinched. You tried to kill me. He ran both hands across his face, frantic. You're exaggerating. You weren't supposed to suffer. It was supposed to be fast. The room froze. Sasha covered her mouth, eyes bulging. Tyrone, you told me you were just going to scare her, she whispered. You told me. I turned to her. You understand now, don't you? He didn't plan a future with you either. You were just the ornament on a story he told himself. Her tears came harder. I walked to the door leading to the backyard. The wind carried in the faint scent of fresh soil. The tree outside glowed, festive, bright, and monstrous. Tyrone, I said, still facing the door, why did you dig the hole that deep? He didn't answer. The silence dropped like a weight. Then finally, so no one would find you. Sasha whispered, oh my God. Something inside me, something dormant for years, inhaled. I turned slowly, meeting Tyrone's gaze. And for the first time all night, he stepped back. You dug too deep, I said quietly, because the deeper you dig, the higher I rise when I come back. He shook his head wildly. Danielle, please, don't do this. Don't ruin me. Think of our marriage. Our marriage ended, I said, when you picked up that shovel. He collapsed onto the couch. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lash out. I didn't break anything. I didn't need to. I simply pulled out my phone, the same phone he tried so many times to grab under the excuse of checking my messages. I lifted it, opened the camera, pressed record, and pointed at him. Go on, I said softly. Say it again. Say everything you just said. Toast with me, Tyrone. Toast with the truth. He raised both hands as if I were pointing a gun at him. Danielle, please, turn that off. You'll ruin me. Please. Me? I asked, smiling faintly. Tyrone, you destroyed yourself. His breathing turned ragged. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His mask, the careful, quiet, calm persona he sold to everyone, had shattered. This was the real man. The shaking, furious, exposed creature. This was the man who dug a grave and expected me to lie still inside it. And as the camera captured every frantic second, something unexpected filled me. Catharsis, liberation, a rebirth made not of revenge or rage, but of truth. The truth he could no longer bury. The truth I had clawed my way back to deliver. The truth I finally felt strong enough to speak. He tried to bury me, but he didn't bury the one thing he never understood. I rise. When I pressed the record button and aimed the camera at Tyrone, I thought he would lunge. I thought he'd grab the phone out of my hand like he had so many times before. But he didn't. He stepped back. And that's when I understood something I had never felt so clearly. For the first time, he feared me more than I feared him. The man who dug a grave in our backyard and shoved me into it now trembled at the sight of a device made of glass and metal. But it wasn't the phone. It was the truth it held. Turn that off, Danielle, he begged, voice cracking. We can fix this, just us. There is no us anymore, I said calmly. You dug that up yourself. Sasha sobbed uncontrollably on the couch, trapped between wanting to run toward him or toward me, unsure where safety lived anymore. Her wide, confused eyes bounced between us like a lost child, realizing she had chosen the wrong guardian. I didn't speak to her, not yet, because the doorbell rang. A simple chime, soft, ordinary, but it sliced through the room like a verdict. "Who is it?" I asked, never lowering the phone. Tyrone's face drained. It's probably Helena," he muttered. "She's always sticking her nose into—" Helena. Had she heard my screams? Seen movement in the yard? Noticed the strange quiet afterward? I walked to the door slowly, still recording, still covered in soil, scratches, terror, and clarity tangled together inside me. I opened it. Helena stood on the porch wearing a light coat, hair pulled back in a messy twist, eyes wide with alarm, and something else. Recognition. She looked me over, top to bottom, her breath catching. "Danielle, what happened? You're covered in dirt. Where were you?" I could have done what I had spent years doing. Smile, lie, say it was just a fall. Protect him, protect the illusion. But that version of me was gone, buried in the yard under the tree. I inhaled sharply and said, "He tried to bury me in the backyard." The words dropped with the weight of stone. Her eyes filled instantly. "Tyrone," she whispered, needing confirmation no one should have to ask for. I nodded. Behind me, I felt the air shift. Tyrone appeared in the hall, pulling at his shirt, forcing a smile. "Helena, hey, don't listen to her. She's rattled. She fell outside, and you know how women get, right? Everything is drama." Helena turned slowly toward him, and in her eyes, I saw something powerful. A memory, a truth, a line drawn from her own past to mine. "I know exactly how lying men get," she said. The floor seemed to drop under his feet. I felt something in me loosen, an old rope that had been strangling my instincts for years. "Do you want to come in, Helena?" I asked. "You should see." She stepped inside without hesitation. She surveyed the scene with sharp, seasoned eyes. The spilled wine, the 2 glasses, my chair occupied, the soil on my clothes, the scratches on my arms, the folder on the table. She saw everything. And then she said quietly, "This wasn't a fall. This was an attempt." Tyrone tried to rush in front of her. "Helena, stop. You know Danielle exaggerates. You know how she gets." "Being difficult isn't a crime," Helena cut him off. "Burying someone is." Sasha whimpered, wrapping her arms around herself. I didn't know he meant, I only wanted him to choose me." I looked at her, not with rage, with clarity. "You wanted to be chosen," I said, "but you chose a man who never chooses anyone. Not you, not me, only himself." She bowed her head, the truth sinking in like cold water. Helena moved to the center of the room and took out her phone. "Danielle," she said softly, "should I call the police?" My chest tightened. The word police had never existed in my marriage vocabulary. I'd been raised to keep problems inside, to protect reputations, to avoid noise, to swallow pain. But I had learned something in the dirt that night. Silence is the first shovel an abuser hands you. "Yes," I said. My voice was thin, but steady. "Call." Tyrone lunged forward. "Helena, don't! This is between me and—" "Between couples is leaving dishes in the sink," Helena snapped. "Attempted burial is a crime." Sasha cried harder, collapsing inward. I didn't know. I didn't know he meant, I only wanted him to choose me. I looked at her, not with rage, with clarity. You wanted to be chosen, I said, but you chose a man who never chooses anyone. Not you, not me, only himself. She bowed her head, the truth sinking in like cold water. Helena moved to the center of the room and took out her phone. Danielle, she said softly, should I call the police? My chest tightened. The word police had never existed in my marriage vocabulary. I'd been raised to keep problems inside, to protect reputations, to avoid noise, to swallow pain. But I had learned something in the dirt that night. Silence is the first shovel an abuser hands you. Yes, I said. My voice was thin but steady. Call. Tyrone lunged forward. Helena, don't. This is between me and… Between couples is leaving dishes in the sink, Helena snapped. Attempted burial is a crime. Sasha cried harder, collapsing inward. Helena made the call right there in the living room. I sank into a dining chair, not my chair, because my legs finally gave in. I trembled, but not with fear. My body was finally releasing the shock. I held my phone. The recording was still running. Helena looked at it and said, "Hold on to that like it's your own heartbeat, because it is." When the police arrived, the house fell into a strange hush. Tyrone tried to be respectful, calm, cooperative, slipping back into his favorite mask. But the scene contradicted every word he tried to spin. Explain the grave? Explain the dirt? Explain the scratches? Explain the forged documents? Explain the wine? Explain Sasha's lipstick on the glass? He tried. He truly did. But his web had collapsed. A female officer took me aside. She asked gently, "What happened?" And I told her. Everything. Not softened, not minimized, not excused. I told her about the years of quiet control, about the manipulation, about the tree, the grave, the shove, the toast, the words, "She's not coming back. You promised." I told her my story, the real one. She listened, without doubt, without judgment, and said, "You did the hardest thing possible today. You refused to stay quiet." Everything after that began to fall into place. The report, the medical evaluation, the protective order, the legal guidance. But inside me, the chaos was still settling. One thing, however, was crystal clear. I would not sleep in that house again. I would not decorate that yard again. I would not warm that couch again. I would not shrink into the story he had written for me. I gathered my things, not like someone fleeing, like someone surviving. And that Christmas, the one that began with a grave, ended with a different image. Me walking out the front door, alive, supported, holding proof, and stepping into a future that, for the first time in years, was mine. I remember exactly how it felt when I closed the gate behind me that night. Cold air hit my face, and I finally breathed without asking anyone's permission. In movies, moments like this come with triumphant music, fireworks, some cinematic gesture of victory. In real life, victory is quiet. It arrives like a long exhale, a trembling chin, a simple thought, "I survived, and now I exist." There was no glowing Christmas tree behind me, no family waiting inside, no husband calling me back for a holiday picture. But for the first time in years, there was a whole woman inside my own skin, and that woman was me. The next hours unfolded like an avalanche. Police paperwork, medical checks, statements, photographs of my injuries, an attorney highlighting items I never realized were also evidence. But the surprising part wasn't the process. It was what I discovered inside myself while it was happening. I wasn't shaking anymore. I wasn't stumbling over my own words. I wasn't shrinking to fit someone else's narrative. When the attorney asked if I had somewhere to go, I said yes. And for the first time, the word didn't carry guilt. I had a place, I had a name, I had a story, and for the first time, I had a future. When I got into the car headed to a friend's home, I glanced at the rearview mirror and saw an image I barely recognized. Me, whole. Sometimes survival isn't one heroic moment. It's a series of small decisions where you choose yourself. And that night, for the first time, I chose me. When dawn finally crept into the sky and the city fell quiet again, I received the message that sealed everything. Protective order granted. He can't come near you anymore. I leaned back on the couch and cried, not with fear, with relief. A relief that washed through memories like a tide. The first time he criticized my outfit. The first time he called me dramatic. The first time he praised Sasha in front of me. The first time he made me doubt my instincts. The first time he used silence to punish instead of hands. Each micro-violence, each manipulation, each erasure, all of it evaporated, like smoke finally meeting clean air. And in the space that cleared, something new entered. Freedom. Christmas morning arrived without lights, without music, without decorations. No perfect picture, no fake family cheer. And yet, it was the most peaceful Christmas I'd ever lived. Not perfect peace, not guaranteed peace, not eternal peace, but real peace. The kind that fits in your chest without crushing it. I made myself coffee, grabbed a blanket, sat by the window. No gifts at my feet, no forced embraces, no holiday meal. And still, it was the most honest holiday I've ever had. I wrapped my arms around myself, arms that had once carried an entire household alone, and finally used them to comfort me. I gave myself the tenderness I had spent years pouring into someone emotionally incapable of returning it. And I realized something profoundly simple. Rebirth isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It's the moment you whisper to yourself, I deserve to live. Days later, I received the official audio copy of the recording. I listened to Tyrone's trembling voice, his excuses, his lies, his unraveling. And I understood. I didn't have to do anything more. Life would return him to the only place where lies survive, the empty space of someone who never knew love. As for Sasha, she vanished. Whether out of shame, fear, or a late-coming conscience, I'll never know. But she wasn't the point. She had never been the point. The only person who mattered in that story was me. When I think about that hole in the backyard now, that tree, that night, I don't see the grave that almost swallowed me. I see the doorway I walked through, the boundary I finally set, the moment I woke up. And if you, listening to this now, have ever felt someone lifting a shovel over your life, emotionally, financially, psychologically, or physically, I want you to hear this clearly. You were not born to fit inside someone else's hands. You were not born to be buried by someone's lack of love. You were not born to be silenced inside your own life. I climbed out of that dirt because deep down, my body remembered something my mind had forgotten. Women rise. Women return. Women rebuild. And when we come back whole. That was my Christmas. Not the one he planned, the one I rewrote. And as I look at myself now from a healthier distance, I can finally say, I didn't just survive Tyrone. I survived the version of myself that believed I deserved him. If this story found you, if it moved you, if it reminded you of your own strength, please like, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone you love, because I will never again return to the darkness he tried to bury me.